Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. Hi, I'm Anne, your holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach. And today we're going to talk about pacifiers. I feel like a lot of things, sleep is, and just motherhood, childhood, toddlerhood, is always hot topics, right? And there's a lot of opinions and a lot of different layers around the pacifier conversation, whether we're talking about babies or we're talking about toddlers or we're talking about the dentist, or we're talking about sleep. And I just want to kind of share my thoughts and how I answer this question when families come to me, whether they feel that their child is really attached to a pacifier, or we have a newborn and they're like, should I give them a pacifier? Or we have a toddler and they're like, when do I take away the pacifier? There's so many seasons of pacifier. So let's kick off in this way. This is usually my first response. Pacifiers are like little ticking time bombs. They work until they don't. I feel that the most ideal season for using a pacifier is in the newborn phase because it does the best job of helping to pacify your child. And usually in the newborn season is when there's most of a need for that. Some little ones really rely on that sucking, whether they're sucking on a pacifier or they're nursing on you and they're finding comfort and soothing and sucking. And then some little ones, it's motion, and some little ones, it's holding, and some little ones, it's a cocktail of all of those things. But I do think that the newborn phase is the best time for that. Same thing, kind of newborn time in the middle of the night. Not every waking generally with a newborn is there a need to feed them, right? Obviously, newborns eat about every few hours, and then we have feeding on demand, we have cluster feeding, all these things. But there are some times where offering a pacifier in the middle of the night with a waking and just getting that soothe can help them to go back to sleep without doing a full-on feed. That isn't something that we would always do long term. So I think that's usually, I would say, the most ideal time. And again, this all kind of comes down to when I'm connecting with families, because we could be all the way over here in newborn land, or we could be all the way over here in toddlerhood and land. Now, I say taking time bomb because every baby's different. So some little ones may love it in the newborn phase and find comfort in that. I would have wished that my first son, I literally got to a point, I was like, will you suck on something that's not me? Because I wasn't super crazy or wanting to use a pacifier with him, because I kind of always thought, oh, is this something I'm going to have to take away later on? He wasn't interested. He was like, milk's not coming out of this. Cool. Yeah, I'm not interested. So I tried though, because my nipples were so sore and, you're just constantly feeding day and night. And I would have loved for some of those times that he would have sucked on a pacifier. So I think you don't really know until you're in those seasons. But some babies don't care about them. So then in the whole, it works until it doesn't conversation is sometimes that phases out in the newborn phase, where maybe there were days and weeks in the newborn phase where they responded to it. And then other times they don't. Then you have little ones where it is a core association. Like that is what they use to go to sleep for naps and nighttime sleep. And then sometimes they'll just get a little bit older, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever. And then parents will report, you know what, we used it pretty heavily, but I'm starting to see that they're phasing out of it. Maybe you put it in, but it pops out. I always say that if we're getting to the place of doing the passy pop, like the pacifier game where you put it in, they spit it out, you put it in, they spit it out, you put it in, they spit it out, it's not really working. Like it may help them to get some initial soothe and to fall asleep, but it rarely is something that is helping them to stay asleep. So it's such a big, vast conversation on child to child, how much they love the pacifier, when it's used, and did it stop working at some point. So sometimes that stop working or stop really being a big reliance happens when they're younger. And then sometimes I've worked with families with 2, 3, 4-year-olds that are like, Anne, we still use a pacifier and there's no way that they're ever going to sleep without this pacifier. And now it's something that we are removing from them. And I think that is always a little bit more challenging. Not from a sleep coaching perspective, actually. I always say, when it's gone and they start learning their skills, they never care about it. I don't care if a child has used a pacifier for 4 months or 3 years, they don't care about it. But there is an attachment to it. Oftentimes with toddlers, there's an emotional attachment to it, whether they just use it for sleep or it's also kind of just like moving around in their daytime and having it. So I'll usually also share with parents, parents usually have a bigger attachment to the pacifier than the child. The pacifier for the child is their mode of soothing. It's their mode of going to sleep. So when that is replaced with independent sleep skills, that is kind of broken in a way. It's not really a need, but usually parents are more concerned to remove the pacifier. So like, it's the thing that's putting them to sleep or helping them to sleep, or it's the thing that I could do to give them to kind of, help them, whatever the case may be. And every single time I've worked with family, I'm like just hit 8 years in sleep coaching. There's never not one time where we've gone into coaching with a pacifier where it's turned into this big old thing that a little one cannot get rid of. It's just a sleep association, just like holding and feeding and rocking and bouncing. It just so happens to fall into the sleep prop category. So to share all of that, here's my thoughts. If it works for you and it works for your child, awesome, because I am in the business of solving sleep struggles. So when families come my way, there's problems. And genuinely, families have an interest in helping their child to learn to sleep independently, meaning you could put them in their crib and, nighttime and nap time, and they can put themselves to sleep without needing anything. So when families come my way, we are removing the pacifier. But let's say you're using a pacifier and with your newborn and it's great. And your baby, and it's great, right? Your infant, and you move into toddlerhood, and it's great. And then maybe, because actually I just had a mom reach out to me. This is what sparked this conversation today. I had a mom reach out to me on TikTok. She was curious if her toddler was ready to drop nap. And she was like, we just recently got rid of the pacifier and it went really well. And, he's still napping or was still napping and sleeping through the night. But now we're seeing some nap resistance. And I'm curious if he's ready to drop nap. And based on what she was sharing with me, I'm like, yeah, I think these are some signs that he's getting ready. But she was able to transition and take away the passy. And I don't know if they attach it to a balloon and sent it into the sky, or if it was something that they just said, hey, bud, we're not going to do this anymore. However you decide to transition your toddler. But usually it needs to be replaced in some way. So when toddler families come my way, then replacing that with independent sleep skills, that's how we're solving for sleep struggles. But if your little one is using a pacifier and not having struggles, then what works for you works for me. And one of the, I don't know if bonus is the right word, but I'll share this with families too, that let's say somebody came my way and they're like, hey, we're working on this schedule. We put our child in their crib awake. We give them a pacifier and they're going to sleep, but they're having struggles, right? Let's say it's like night wakings or short naps or early rises or whatever it is. I always tell them, I said, one of the things with pacifier little ones, especially in this case where they're going into their crib awake and given a pacifier, is they do have the awareness of where they are. Majority of the time when I'm working with families, babies are fully drowsy or falling asleep with parents and then being transferred. Therefore, they do not have that awareness of where they are when they fell asleep. So falling asleep with a pacifier and falling asleep in your arms are two different sides of a coin of aided sleep, right? Like little ones needing help to sleep. But when little ones have pacifiers and they're going in their crib awake, when we go into coaching, that child is used to going in their crib awake, which is a bonus in a way. And now we're just taking away the pacifier and they're learning to sleep independently versus relying on that prop. Because going back to it works until it doesn't, this is really true for all sleep associations. Your baby is constantly growing and changing. So whether it is feeding, holding, rocking, bouncing, or pacifier, sleep associations can quote unquote work for a period of time, and then they get a tooth, and then they're learning to roll, and then they're learning to sit, and then they get ill. And then there's all these things that can be sleep disruptive or feel like what sends you into a regressive time. But usually it just means that there were some cracks in their sleep foundation, and then that development can start to magnify or reveal it. Same thing with the pacifier. It could be like, great, we've always put our little one together, to sleep with a pacifier. And then they're upon this growing time and now it's not working. And that we just never know. So if it works for you, it works for me, meaning it's great that your child's sleeping. If at any point that changes, just know that, okay, we didn't have sleep independent yet. There may be a lot of positives or things that are really working in their sleep equation. And that may be the next phase to go from pacifier to not pacifier. But I think that there's a little bit too much kind of pressure and stress on it. It's just another sleep association. It just falls into the sleep prop category. Now, when we talk about their mouth and their teeth and the dentist, that usually becomes a different conversation. On the non-prop side, but my first son sucked his thumb. And early on, I was like, oh, great. Like, what is this going to look like from a dental perspective, right? Because again, young, he was sucking on me. I was a human pacifier. And then that just transitioned to his thumb. That's not always the case when babies need bottle or breast to sleep or pacifier to sleep. Not all of them, in my experience, become thumb suckers. Some of them will find comfort in sucking on their fingers or their hands. But as I was taking him to the dentist, once he started to get teeth, and then every, 6 months from there on out, I was always asking them, okay, how is his jaw? How are things, for me. And it's the same thing, thumb sucking and pacifiers. You're going to have that conversation with your dentist. And based on your child, their teeth, their development, their jaw, they may recommend that you remove the pacifier sooner or later. And some families are, you might have a 2, 3, 4-year-old. They're like, nope, jaw still looks good. Like, you just never really know. And I think a lot of things, I share this a lot, nothing with sleep is ever one size fits all. There's never, this is the right way to do things. This is a standard way, and this is what this means. But I do think that this conversation is important because I get asked about pacifiers a lot. So whether you call it a pacifier, a passy, a binky, whatever the case may be, if you love it and it works for your child, amazing. And if your child's using it and you don't love it, just know that you absolutely can transition away from the pacifier and your child can learn to sleep independently. Like I said, in my 8 years of coaching, it's never an issue. It's not as deeply rooted of a sleep association as we think it is. And I think the bonus when we do move away from pacifier is and children are rested, taking their naps and getting good rest at nighttime, is you will also naturally find less of a need to pacify them, which I think is a really cool season to move into, where it's not always feeling like such a dependency. And then I'll always share this with families. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to burn it. You don't have to hide it. I think pacifiers are great to kind of have on hand. Same thing with bottle and breast. If you're in the doctor's office and you're like, hey, you have to be quiet, right? That's a good place to use it. You're on a car ride or, doing some sort of road trip. You're on an airplane, having babies suck on a pacifier, a nipple, a bottle, and being able to kind of deal with that pressure on takeoff and landing, that can be really helpful. So I think that there's always a time and the place for those sorts of things. But I hope that this gave you, if you're kind of either questioning pacifier, you're in a pacifier season, or you're wondering what is next for your little one, I hope that kind of this conversation just helped bring some light on both sides. Both sides of pacifiers aren't bad things. And it's deeply a personal choice for you and your child. And until the next episode, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.